Hey there, friends. Okay, I am in component 4 for the initial certification process for National Board, and I am looking at participation in learning communities and reflection. Now, I want to remind you that all certification areas have the same questions for component 4. However, there may be like a little small tiny tweak, like young children or math students or whatever, but it's really the same question. So we all answer the same thing for C4. Anyway, the questions highlighted in blue and yellow are the questions we're focused on here in this video. So in section 3, participation in learning communities, the very first question says, how did you identify the area of need for professional learning? What factors or information did you consider in determining how to meet that need? And what impact did addressing the professional learning need have on children's learning? So I break this down in a really big way with templates and charts to show you how to break it apart over in my course. You can get to that at TraceyBryantStuckey.com. The C4 Assessment Drives Instruction course, where you see me on video, just like you see me right now. But I, for the sake of this video here on YouTube, I really want to talk to you about this idea of what a professional learning need is versus the student need. Because notice here in participation in learning communities, you have 2 pages. So inevitably, you're going to have a page for your PLN and a page for your student need or student learning need. Some of you have a learning need, some of you, it's not a learning need. Anyway, your professional learning need is something you need to grow in. You need to get better at. So how do you identify, like, what is it you need to grow in? Many times teachers will say to me, oh, but Tracey, like my district tells me exactly what I have to do. Well, I mean, I don't determine it. Okay, well, let's think in that range. If the district says you're going to do Orton Gillingham or you're going to do training on cognitive guided instruction or UDL or whatever it is, backwards design, did you realize once you got into that, you needed to learn? You had professional needs. You couldn't teach in that fashion if you didn't know and learn. So yes, then that becomes a professional learning need. You needed to learn how to do cognitive guided instruction in math to be able to teach your kids in that fashion. Now, the second part of that question talks about the factors or information that you considered in determining how to meet that need. So again, if your district says you're going to do cognitive guided instruction, the factors then or the information would come from the district. Well, the district determined that student test scores in math were ... Therefore, we all needed to have a particular program where we could ... I recognized in my own classroom when I disaggregated my own student scores that I needed ... If you're in a kindergarten or preschool program right now, you're like, I don't have scores. Again, think about like the oral language needs of the students. If literacy is what they needed, think about the writing. Think about things that were going on around you where you're like, wait a minute, this is where my kids are not doing really well. That probably a correlation happens with me and what I'm doing for them. So I need to grow and be better at that. And then what impact did addressing that professional learning need have on the students' learning? So because you learned cognitive guided instruction or because you put in more speaking and listening into your kindergarten classroom, or because you started to integrate technology more in your classroom, students, what? How are they impacted? And you have to prove it. You have to be able to prove it. You don't always have to prove things with quantitative data. You can prove with things like anecdotal notes, letters from other people. I saw a teacher one time prove, but she got a letter from the state department in her state that said She's getting a bonus because her test scores were in the top 25% in the state. I mean, that's a great way to prove student impact, because if those students can be in the top 25% in the state, that's amazing. So don't get really bogged down in the fact that you won't always have quantitative data. I think that really bogs people down pretty bad. You have to have grown yourself. You have to have said, this is why it was important. This is how I determined that I needed to do this. It didn't just fall out of the sky and voila, because National Board said I had to learn something, I did it. It should not sound like that, be like that. Nope, don't do that. All right, and when we go down to reflecting about that professional learning that we just talked about, and really being a part of a collaborative learning community, so were those activities as effective in advancing children's learning and growth as you expected? Be honest. Yes, they were. This is why. Here's some evidence of that. Think like a lawyer. Think out loud. Let us know what you're thinking. Or were they not as effective? They made me do this. I went through it. I changed in my classroom, but the scripted program has not had a very big effect on my students. In fact, their thinking levels are lower than they were prior, right? If so, what contributed to the positive result, as I just said? And if not, what factors influence the outcome? So if we think about scripted programs, which are all the rage now in our nation, in literacy, and in math sometimes, what is it that the kids don't have anymore because of that? So that's where a negative could come from, possibly. All right, so I hope this helps. Again, if you want to be a part of and take this journey with me over at the Assessment Drives Instruction course, go to TraceyBryantStuckey.com and join the fun. It's fun over there. Bye now.